good morning again. And it gives me immense pleasure to share this beautiful morning with you all in this 2 days international conference. And today I'm going to talk to you about world literature. I'll just start sharing my screen. Is the screen available to you? Can you see that? I would really appreciate if somebody could tell me. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. All right. So, world literature is one term which has become really pertinent in today's time. Uh, and the topic which I'm discussing with you today is world literature, strains of existentialism in Hermann Hesse's Siddhartha. If we come to the third slide, world literature, according to David Damrosch, are literary works that circulate beyond their culture of origin in its most expansive sense. World literature includes any work that has reached beyond its home base. And when I say that, it is more pertinent in today's time because we are living in a global world, and in the global context, the barrier of time, space, culture, race, ethnicity is gradually decreasing. So it refers to a broad network of literature that interacts in the spaces between culture and is read outside its cultural context. In the contemporary times, we talk about plurality, plural, that is, going one step further than multiculturalism. Plurality also promises that there is a possibility of existence for various cultures, ethnicity, races side by side. It is a broad network of literature that interacts in spaces between culture and must be read outside its cultural context. And world literature is not a travelogue. It is not a survey of different peoples and the ways they live, but it also promises us to understand their sensitivities, their sensibilities, their preferences, their likes and dislikes. Damarosh David, in What is World Literature, talks about that it is about stepping out of our neighborhoods, regions, culture, ethnicity, and placing ourselves in the larger context of humanity. So I'm again going to, talk to you about the necessity or the requirement of the present time, where everything, every person is so deeply interconnected due to the fact that the barrier of time and space is being diminished. The very basic fact that we are connected all across the world today through internet in itself is a testimony to what perhaps the world literature is talking about, to bring people together. And in Indian context, there is a term in Sanskrit which says Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, that the whole world is one. So it is important to understand that world literature gives us an insight to appreciate the other culture, other people. We gain deeper meaning from the author of a foreign culture because of the meaning of world literature changes when it is taken from its original context. I'm going to read out 4 lines from a poem. At the center of the universe dwells the Great Spirit, and the center is everywhere. It is within each of us. So, what I was talking to you about earlier also, that the sameness in difference, that there is unity in diversity, is something or is the foundation on which world literature perhaps is based, and therefore it occupies a unique place between cultures. World literature, we read world literature to establish common ground rather than to show difference between us and them. And I quote, the distinction between us and them is perhaps also the only possibility for a harmonious living between, not only between people, but between not only between human beings, but also between all the species of nature. Now, Afklang, or the enlightened movement, which grew from 17th to 19th century in Europe, it talks about that the customs and traditions were given a backseat, and the favor was given to exploration and individualism, which also forms the basis of the modern world, and today what we call the postmodern world. And the main writers of this who were influenced by this movement were Goethe, Nietzsche, Kant, Terek, Thomas Mann, Hermann Hesse. And it was followed by movements like naturalism, impressionism, expressionism, and existentialism. Now, today, because of the paucity of time, this is one topic where we could perhaps have 2 hours of discussion. So I'm going to limit this particular session to a great novella, Siddhartha, written by Hermann Hesse. And his time period is from 1877 to 1962. There's a quote from the writer: "There is no reality except the one contained within us. That is why so many people live in unreal life. They take images outside from them for reality and never allow the world within them to assert itself." So the basic principle of Siddhartha is on the exploration of the self. So the journey inward, the journey to unveil what is the basis, which some people term as soul or spirit or self. So this small novella talks about the possibility of each individual to become a Buddha. That everyone has a possibility to reach that self realization. I'm very sure that you all must have heard about Gautam Siddhartha, who was later named as Buddha, the Enlightened One. Hermann Hesse, born in 1877, died in 1962 in Germany. He grew up in Kohl and Basel. He attended school in Germany, and though he was a model student, he was unable to adapt. And let me tell you here that he was a rebel. And he says, and I quote, "I was a good learner, good at Latin, though only fair at Greek. But I was not a very manageable boy, and it was only with difficulty that I fitted into the framework of the piteous education that aimed at subduing and breaking the individual personality." I'm reminded of here when I talk about Hermann Hesse, I'm reminded about even William Makepeace Thackeray, who also shared the same concern where the schooling system he disagreed with. And when we talk about a person being a rebel or a revolutionary, whether it is Shelley or it's Byron or it's here Hermann Hesse, or in addition many more authors, so there is this inciting spirit inside them to seek what is not seen to the visible eye. The basic theme of Siddhartha here is to find the meaning of existence not only on exterior but also in the interior. His father was a doctor who belonged to a Baltic German minority in the Russian ruled Baltic region. His grandparents served in India at a mission under the auspices of Protestant Christian Missionary Society, and his grandfather compiled a Malayalam grammar and a Malayalam English dictionary and also contributed to a translation of the Bible into Malayalam in South India. About his childhood, as I was just talking to you about, he was a rebel, a spirit which was wanting to find a deeper meaning. Um, his mother, describing her own childhood, she said, "A happy child I was not, as usual among missionaries at the time. She was left behind in Europe at the age of 4 when her parents returned to India." From childhood, Hesse was headstrong and hard for his family to handle. Again, I'm quoting what his mother said about the writer, and I quote, "The little fellow has a life in him, an unbelievable strength, a powerful will, and for his 4 years of age, a truly astonishing mind. How can he express all that? It truly gnaws at my life, his eternal fighting against his tyrannical temperament, his passionate turbulence. God must shape his proud spirit, then it will become something noble and magnificent. But I shudder to think what this young and passionate person might become should his upbringing be false or weak." So perhaps a testimony to what we were discussing about that internal spark which kept on motivating, which kept on pricking him throughout his life, because Siddhartha is also partly autobiographical, and it also talks about the discovery of the self by the character, and also the discovery of the writer, wherein he's gravely influenced by the Eastern philosophy, which we will refer to a little later. He published his first book, a collection of poems, in 1899. His first novel, Peter Camizind, was not a great success, but afterwards his important works, which talks about the theme of inward and outward search, is Gertrude and Rosald. And then a visit to India in these years was later reflected in Siddhartha, which came out in 1922, a poetic novel set in India at the time of the Buddha about the search of enlightenment. So this is the basic theme, the underlying theme of this particular novella. A deepening sense of personal crisis led Hess to psychoanalysis with Lang, a disciple of Carl Jung, which had a pervasive effect on a troubled Germany, and his later work, especially Siddhartha, shows his interest in Jungian concept of introversion and extroversion, the collective unconscious, idealism, and symbols. And he also came to be preoccupied with what he saw as the duality of human nature. This is very significant. There is a wonderful quote. I hope you're able to see that, which is from the novel, and I quote, "Knowledge can be communicated, but not wisdom. One can find it, live it, be fortified by it, do wonders through it, but one cannot communicate and teach it." Now, this is the basic principle of the novel itself, wherein the character Siddhartha, we are short of time, and we have only 15 minutes, so I'm going to skip some of the slides because of the paucity of time. Nonetheless, um, as we talked about, spiritual journey of self-discovery of a man named Siddhartha during the time of Gautam Buddha. This is the basic storyline. The word Siddhartha is made up of two words of Sanskrit language, Siddha, which means achieved, and Artha, what was searched for. And together the two means who has found meaning of existence or who has attained his goal. Now, I'm sure you must have heard about Buddha, whose name was Siddhartha Gautam. He was prince of Kapilvastu. And Buddha refers to any individual who has achieved enlightenment without the aid of others. and he's also considered the founder of Buddhism, and is known as the, and I quote, the enlightened word. You know, the story is that when Buddha was a prince born to a king in a province in Nepal, and it was believed, and his father was told that if he sees the outside world, he will not become a king, but would rather become a recluse and a religious leader. So, however, that his father kind of protected him. At the age of 16, he was married to Yashodhara, had a boy named Rahul, and but at the age of 29, when he witnessed four signs, that is, of old man, sick person, beggar, and corpse, then he understood the futility of life. Therefore, he told his father that he's going to leave the kingdom, and he joined an ascetic group known as Samanas. Samanas life. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you are audible.
Okay. It believes that it is a life of strict self denial which can free a person from suffering. So, Siddhartha joins that. Buddha joins that group, and then we come to the novel. It is set in a Brahmin household in India. और उसके the background is forest, where the samanas live a life of self denial, world of senses and material things. Then we come to the next slide, that is the 18th slide. It talks about the experience, the totality of conscious events of human life, which is shown as the best way to approach understanding of reality and attain enlightenment. Now, see, what happens is that the character Siddhartha, as I told you, a Brahmin boy. I'm going to just, maybe in 5 minutes sum up, and then maybe quickly run through the slides. Now, Siddhartha is a Brahmin boy who was following rituals. At one point, he joins the Samanas group, where he goes with his friend Govinda, but he's still dissatisfied there. At his house he was following rituals. With the group, he was following the principles of self denial, but he was still dissatisfied, and then he heard about Gautama, and he joined the group of Gautama, that is the Buddha. But again, there, the striking point of Siddhartha is that again there he thought that something is missing. So initially he was pleased with the principles of Buddhism, that is the Eightfold Path and four main points and other aspects of Buddhism. But because there was something still lacking, which is perhaps his own assertion of the fact that he wanted to find enlightenment through experience and not through practices or rituals. So he leaves that group. His friend Govinda stays there. He goes, he meets a ferryman. There is a river. He crosses the ferryman. He meets a young, beautiful courtesan, Kamla. Am I audible?
Yeah, we can
Sir?
hear you, madam.
Okay, he meets a ferryman, or then Kamala, tells him that if he wants to be with her, then he has to become a businessman. He joins a businessman named Kamaswamy, and he indulges totally in physical senses. But a very interesting thing is that when he had reached that business acumen, and he was totally wealthy and had all the material possession, there was something inside him which remained untouched. And that is what is, he understand later was his soul. Or what, in Bhagavad Gita, we talk about the Drishta Bhav, that is just being a witness to activities. So, there is a saying that from bhog to yog, that is from indulgence to leaving. That is the path he follows. And then there also, after he was bored, after some time, he goes back, meets a ferryman named Vasudeva. Vasudeva is also a name of Krishna or Lord Vishnu, who tells him the actual meaning of what he was searching. That is the meaning of existence. And he gives him he gives him the example of the river. River here stands as a cleansing agent. It is believed that water has very high prana energy, life force, and you can perhaps experience it yourself. If you sit by water, you will see that gradually your consciousness will start settling. So here, while he becomes associate to the ferryman, who takes one person from one side of river to the other side of the river, and there he understands that just like river, the water in the river flows to the ocean. The water evaporates, goes to the cloud, and again comes in ocean. So in the similar manner, he understands that there is a completeness of life, that the body is something which is all right. So it is basically that. Am I audible?
Yes,
Ma'am.
ma'am.
Okay, so reaches the understanding that it is the soul, the spirit, which is permanent. And most interesting part about this journey is that through Siddhartha says that it is not by following the principles of others, but by experience that one may reach salvation, nirvana, or enlightenment. I'm gradually running the slides to you, where the main characters are given. I'm sorry, because of the time. I cannot take all these things in detail. Main characters are given, and then you have underlying principles of the novel, which we have talked about. Then the conflict, that is the journey of Siddhartha. There is a reference to the Vedas and Upanishads. And then the chapter titles, it is in two parts, the part one and part two. And the main themes is that happiness, which comes after spiritual peace, and Siddhartha gets it in the different stages of life. The quest, that is his search for Atma, the inner spirit, and friendship between Siddhartha and Govinda, and Siddhartha and Vasudeva. Then the major concerns we've talked about, and you know, I'm just going to conclude it by what Hesse says. Siddhartha does not, in the end, learn true wisdom from any teacher, but from a river that roars in a funny way, and from a kindly old fool who always smiles and is secretly a saint. And Buddha's way to salvation has often been criticized and doubted because it is thought to be wholly grounded in cognition. True, but it is not just intellectual cognition, not just learning and knowing, but spiritual experience that can be earned only through strict disciplines in a selfless life. Then there are a few more quotes. We don't have time. Uh, of course, the Buddhist philosophy, where we talk about the Four Noble Truths: Dukha, Samudaya, Nirodha, and Marga. That is the path. And from the novel, there are three, four takes which I would, share with you. First is that you are your own guru. Respect and learn from others, but don't hold anyone's power or wisdom above your own journey. It is your own journey. Your journey is not like anyone's else. Embrace your unique path. And in life, there will always be challenges. Embrace life challenges as necessary for your evolution. They are here to teach you. So with this and the paucity of time, I would wind up today's session. It was wonderful meeting you all. My apologies because of the reasons that because of the paucity of time, and but I sincerely hope that you gathered something out of it. It was of some help. And with this, I wish you all very best for your future endeavors. And hopefully we meet on some platform like this soon again. Have a very good day. Thank you so much.